This is Empty the Bench with Tom Albano.
I will not believe Damian Lillard is interested in another team or another team is interested. I'm not going to believe any of that. You know when I'm going to believe that? When Damian Lillard is in another uniform, because it feels like at this point, because I mean, it was just not that long ago that Damian Lillard said gave some sort of indication that he was happy being in Portland and wanted to be a trailblazer for life.
Nick Morgasen.
Jared, I hope you see this when this clip comes out.
Oh, God.
If this was a Red Sox pitcher, would you have the same criticism? Because if you don't, you are a hypocrite.
Empty the Bench starts now.
And then the GM doubled down on it, saying we're trying to build a championship around Lillard. Hey, you want to know what I thought when I heard that?
Why the fuck you lying? Why you always lying? Oh my God! Stop fucking lying.
This GM can't do shit.
You can lead a team towards the championship, but it can't make that win from here.
Yeah.
Good word for me today.
Yeah, this is going to be a crazy week, and that kind of is on the top of the echelon of stories. Welcome to episode 191 of Empty the Bench on the Empty the Bench podcast network. Tom Albano, Nick Morgasen. Follow us on social media at ETB Sports, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Follow us at the Empty the Bench podcast network at ETB Network, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Follow us on YouTube, subscribe, youtube.com/ETB Network. Make sure you follow our website, etbpodcast.com. All right. A lot to get into this week. Just a little full disclosure. We were going to be doing a different show this week, and there was a lot of scheduling issues that went on behind the scene. We had to make some changes. So just trying to be a little bit transparent up front before we do this show. Tom was not supposed to be here this week because, again, he's back at school, and I respect the schedule, and I want to make sure that everything goes properly. Big story broke. Northwestern University football. Pat Fitzgerald got fired. It wasn't just the football team. It was the baseball team that was involved also. So that pretty much changed up the whole episode this week. And we'll do some housekeeping stuff at the end. But that's the big story for this week. We'll also we're going to be doing an interview also at after the show airs. Hopefully by the weekend it should be up with Bradley Locker of SB Nation, an Insider U, who was one of the first people that broke the story, one of the few that broke the story. So we'll get that to you. Also, Zambando, part of our show at MMA Outsiders, actually knows Bradley and went to Northwestern and got his graduate degree from Northwestern. So I'm curious to see, he'll be part of that and see what was going on down on the floor there. We'll talk about Bob Huggins again. There's legal turmoil with Bob Huggins again. He's saying that he wasn't terminated. Now he wants his job back. That's a whole mess. We'll get into the Yankees hitting coach situation. First time, I think, in 26 years with Brian Cashman.
That a coaching fire has happened mid-season, and good because they absolutely suck.
I mean, the hire was interesting. We'll get into that in a little bit. Also, Portland Trailblazers GM Joe Cronin on Damian Lillard, his thoughts and quotes, which made no sense about possible trade rumors and speculation. I have a lot to say about that.
Yeah, well, you'll have a lot to say when you talk about the end-season tournament for the NBA that's announced.
Yeah, the in-season tournament's a whole different issue. We'll get to that, and then we'll finish it off with the New York Times. Another interesting. I don't know what to really call it, to be honest. Takeover.
Spoiler alert: journalism is dead.
Well, yeah, you and I have talked about that for years. I mean, but all right, let's get underway. The big news: Northwestern football head coach Pat Fitzgerald fired after severe allegations of hazing, racism, and sexual misconduct against Northwestern Athletics. And on top of that, there is now a lawsuit pending from Pat Fitzgerald because he was owed $42 million because he was on paid leave for 2 weeks, and then they just said, "Oh wait, it leaked. You're fired."
Basically, here is the story as far as I know of it. So, the first report came out about hazing going on with the Northwestern football team. Now, bear in mind also something when we talk about the circumstances of this, not really that it means much in the bigger picture, considering the other allegations that have come out. But Northwestern football is a very hold on. I'm going to try and see if I can find the sound effect for it. Yes. Here's their program right now. Like, even without all of this, here was their program. They won one game last season. They are a Big Ten team, and they won one game.
Are they one of those teams like that was like technically in the Big Ten, but they really shouldn't be there?
I don't know about that, but if you're a Big Ten team and you win one game, that they are the Rutgers of the Big Ten. How Rutgers when they joined the what was it? Because the Rutgers they go from like the Big East to
Yeah, I'm looking it up.
12 or something like that.
I'm looking it up while you're talking. Yeah, it's Big 12. Yeah.
Okay, they went from the Big East to the Big 12, and basically for years, I'd say up until recently, for years they were basically they were the bitch toy. They were the ones that you just slapped around just to get a win in that conference. And now here, the Northwestern football team, you have all these allegations of. First, it goes into the hazing. Unfortunately, this isn't the first story that we talked about when it comes to a collegiate sports program or any sports program and hazing. Unfortunately, we have seen at the NCAA level different allegations, whether it pertain to specific programs, coaches, such of hazing. I mean, we're even at the point now where we have major league professional sports teams who have their rules of hazing, and I mean, it's one thing when it's the Yankees or any of the other Major League Baseball sports teams, and they do the silly little, like they dressed up as the Wizard of Oz characters one year. I forget, didn't one team do that? Another team does like Star Wars. You know, that's one thing.
That was Tampa Bay. Joe Madden started that.
Oh my God, that is it. The Star Wars stuff. That was the Star Wars one, you mean, right?
Yeah, and then
Yeah.
all the teams, including the Mets really made a big deal out of Star Wars Day. That was a big thing because I remember being at the ballpark one year and like I see all the characters are Star Wars made up, and I'm like, okay, sure.
But the allegations of hazing that we have in this story are, well, you would wish it was dressing up like Star Wars characters. Let's put it that way. But then it doesn't stop. Then it stretches into that we have, well, let's face it, it says it right there, allegations of racism at the university and with the football culture. And basically the implication is Pat Fitzgerald and the coaches around him basically cultivated this real and allowed for this real toxic culture to take over the environment. You have misconduct allegations, different kinds of sexual misconduct allegations. I mean, it got to a point where there was the story that we were reading in the Daily Northwestern, the school newspaper, which I should clarify. I can't say journalism is dead because the student journalists here did a really good job and
Well,
brought down.
I was going to say also, like, we got to give them a lot of credit. And I was reading a awful announcing story, and I didn't really understand what they were saying about the Northwestern University paper. They basically lauded the paper, and I don't know. Did you know what that would mean? Or
What did you say? I'm sorry.
they said like they lauded the paper, right? Like it was an awful announcing story on Northwestern. Like I don't know, maybe because they didn't like the fact that the school got
Lauded. No, that's you mean Lauded, right?
yeah.
That's
I
highly
think
praised. That means
Oh,
praised extravagantly.
it was a weird word like to use in a
No,
headline.
it's praising. That they're praising them. They're praising them for what they
Got
did.
it.
and they
Okay.
deserve the praise.
Absolutely, they
Look
deserve
at
it.
how much they exposed, how much the first article and then all the follow-ups. Look how much they have exposed. All the misgoing that is going on with this university and their football team.
I've never seen, like, you and I were trying to read this story a couple days ago. The amount of stuff that they dug up from inside the athletics program, not just football. We then found out afterwards that the baseball coach had a toxic environment.
Yeah, it started with one. It started with one thing, and it has exploded into a whole bunch of other stuff. Like it's amazing.
I mean, some of the things like the whiteboard, which some of the bigger media outlets are refusing to release the pictures, which I get, by the way, but like the Shrek's list was a
Yeah.
weird thing.
Okay. So
Yeah.
I'm actually just gonna bring up the article here, and I'm glad that we're gonna have Bradley Locker, who, like you said, inside, and you, SB Nation for them and the Pittsburgh Steelers, a student at Northwestern, and Sam graduated from Northwestern as well. So I'm glad we'll have both of them.
He
Uh,
deserves a lot of praise, the amount of stuff he put out there.
Yeah, and I was gonna say Bradley Locker has been putting stuff out like crazy. He's been doing media tours of late. I'm glad that we're getting to be a part of it. So here is a quote, first of all, from the one of the players who was asked to be asked to remain anonymous.
A
Said,
whistleblower.
yes, I've seen it with my own eyes, and it's just absolutely egregious and vile and inhumane behavior. And basically, here's how what the hazing entails. It's a lot of running, but when I say running, like I know some of you think, oh, running. Oh, well, that's so common, like when you're in baseball and you make a mistake in the field or in practice, sometimes you'll be sent off the lab. No, you would wish it was that kind of run.
Yeah, that would be a walk in the park. Let's put it that way.
Okay, here is running, the quote unquote run. If a player was selected for quote unquote running, and freshmen were primarily targeted, which is why this is a hazing situation, the player who spoke to the Daily said they would be restrained by a group of 8 to 10 upperclassmen dressed in various purge-like masks who would then begin blanking the victim in a dark locker room.
Yeah, I tried to read this to Tom when I was reading the story the other day. I couldn't even like you and I have said a lot of things on this show over the years. Like this,
I'm going to say blank a lot. I'm going to say blank a lot to basically PG these terms.
let's put it this way. Even though we're not saying stuff, you kind of can put 2 and 2 together to make 4.
Yeah. So the Daily obtained images of whiteboards. These are the whiteboards that you were referring to. One is called Runsgiving, and one is called the Shrek's List, and it contains names of players that needed to be running victims, essentially.
Disciplined.
The players said the tradition was especially common during training camp and around Thanksgiving and Christmas, which he said the team called Runsgiving and Runsmiths. It's done. Here's the quote from the player. It's done under the smoke and mirror of quote, oh, this is team bonding. But no, this is sexual abuse.
Yeah.
According to the former player, team members allegedly identified players for running by clapping their hands above their heads around that player. The practice, the player said, was known within the team as the Shrek clap. According to this player who spoke with the Daily, Fitzgerald repeatedly made the signal during practices when players, specifically freshmen, made a mistake. The player believes some players interpreted Fitzgerald making these signals as knowingly, quote, encouraging the hazing to continue. Everyone would just be looking at each other and be like, quote, bro, Fitz knows about this because you wouldn't have taken that action otherwise. Everyone joins in because he's the head coach.
This is bad. Like,
yeah.
but
Well,
go ahead.
No, you go on first before I bring up my point.
What I was going to say is, and you and I discussed this point, and I think there's some comparison, not direct comparison, but this is becoming Penn State and Joe Paterno, except it's not. I always forget his name. I don't know why. Sandusky was going after small kids. That was a whole different issue. This is not that I'm saying this is bad.
Well, Sandusky was also going after kids within the program. The whole issue that you're making with the comparison, so the whole thing you're making with the comparison is that this is even if Fitzgerald didn't know, he didn't do as much as he should have done. That's the whole.
Yep.
That's the whole thing. And that actually is going to lead to my point, which actually mentions here in the student newspaper and actually has been talked about by the bigger outlets. Northwestern did hire independent law firm to investigate some of the claims that was made. And according to the release, which actually talked with former players, current players, they varied on perspective. And basically, the whistleblower's claims were, quote, largely supported by evidence. Participation in or knowledge of these hazing activities, which were not detailed in the summary, was, quote, widespread across NU football players the investigation found. So they released that statement. The investigation concludes. And this is what you were referring to before, but Pat Fitzgerald originally was not going to be fired. He was suspended for 2 weeks.
Unpaid. Yeah.
Unpaid, yes. The coach said he was, quote, very disappointed and was, quote, not aware of the alleged incidents, which again goes over to the why you make the paternal argument comparison.
Yeah,
I should say.
I mean, there's a lot of problems here. One is again that Fitzgerald is going to try to play the victim and say I didn't know anything. Now, here's the problem: we don't know what he exactly knows. We don't know. Not that it matters. If he knew anything, he should have been fired. And and by the way, I was talking to some people about this story too, because the president needs to be held accountable also.
Oh yeah. Well, you say that, and listen to this. Okay, so first of all, this is the other part I was referring to before. The university said in the executive summary, it didn't find sufficient evidence to conclude that the coaching staff knew about ongoing hazing activity, but said, quote, there had been significant opportunities to discover and report the hazing conduct. Ultimately, what it goes down to is, which even the president, Michael Schill, says in his statement after the firing, that ultimately Coach Fitzgerald is responsible for what goes on in that program, ignorance or not.
Agree. But the president needs to be held accountable for not, because I guarantee you these things were going on a lot longer than we knew.
Right, but here's the full quote. Anyways, Coach Fitzgerald is not only responsible for what happens within the program, but also must take great care to uphold our institutional commitment to the student experience and our priority to ensure all students, undergraduate and graduate, can thrive. Clearly, he failed to uphold that commitment, and I failed to sufficiently consider that failure in levying a sanction. Here's my problem. Why did you only suspend him for 2 weeks? Like, why? Why did you only suspend him for 2 weeks? Was it because of the report of that the coaches somehow didn't know? And I say that especially, Nick, because we had the Joe Paterno situation 12 years ago.
Well, I'll tell you one reason why you only got 2 weeks.
I get it. It's Pat Fitzgerald. Pat Fitzgerald was beloved by the football community. I get it. I think, wasn't he a player at Northwestern?
Yes, a very long time ago. I mean, I think he was a linebacker, if I'm not mistaken. But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if he knew 1% of this or 100% of this. It doesn't matter. If he broke code violations of the school, if these allegations, because again, he's filing a lawsuit, so we even have to be careful what we say, is if he knew 1% or even, let's say, 0.5% of the allegations and didn't say anything, he's still wrong.
And some would even argue that even if somehow he didn't know if there was some sort of ignorance, he's
He's
still
the coach.
He's right. He's the coach. But again, that also stretches to what you say of also the president is the president. Now, granted, the president can't be there for everything. He can't foresee everything in every single program. But when you're talking your football program in a conference like the Big Ten, these allegations are damning, especially when it goes from hazing with the football team to a toxic environment throughout the football team and a toxic environment in your baseball team. Like it's the whole athletics department. This is a week of hell. The week from hell for the athletics department at Northwestern. And I feel bad for their PR people in that athletics room.
You and I talked about that a couple days ago. Well, like, I shouldn't say worst because I want to be careful. I don't want to offend people, but what's the toughest job when it comes in the media industry and the business is being a PR person.
In cases like this, when in crisis mode situation.
Because you literally have to scribble and say, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit, how do I cover this? And how do I stop everybody from looking like idiots? And how do we not lose our scholarship money? And how do we not lose our boosters? And how do we do this and that and all this nonsense? I mean, it's a terrible situation. We've talked about, I can't count them off the top of my head, but we've talked about quite a few situations in the college game. I'm trying to remember the list from, well, we talked about Penn State a long time ago, but I'm trying to remember the ones we actually talked about. Oh, we had the punter.
Well, that wasn't a hazing allegation.
But it wasn't a hazing allegation, but it was done at a college university.
You're talking about Matt Areza.
Because I think that was a whole allegation done at a college frat house, if I'm not mistaken.
Right. You're talking about the San Diego State.
So this is not old news. If people think that this doesn't happen on campuses, and what I don't get is how these stories get covered up for as long as they do. That's what I don't get.
And I'm curious. I really am going to be curious when we talk to Bradley tomorrow. How this story all of a sudden, how the story transpired into just, like how did the journalists get the first tip and then everything just spiraled? Like it starts, like imagine you're on a snow mountain and you're starting to roll a snowball down. That all of a sudden, by the time it gets to the bottom, it's this great big snow boulder.
It kind of reminded me of Indiana Jones when he's getting chased by the rolling object, trying to avoid it.
And in this case, Northwestern got pummeled by that boulder.
Yeah, I mean, again, credit to the students at Northwestern, because usually that's not how a story gets broken. When I went on Twitter, which is where we seem to get most of our news these days, I saw that from Bradley. I saw it from a few of the women reporters at Northwestern University, students. I didn't really see national platforms on this story. Did you?
I mean, I saw ESPN.
Well, I'm talking about right at the beginning.
Oh, right at the beginning.
Yeah, no. It was Northwestern Insider U that really had the story. Now, obviously, they're on campus, but usually it's the other way. Usually the national platforms have the insider knowledge and they get it first. It's rare that you see the national platforms grabbing it from Insider U.
Well, sometimes that happens where sometimes they'll get the stories and sometimes they'll grab the stories from the local and school newspapers. I've had that happen to me where one of my stories was picked up by a national outlet, and that's because of the school inside reporting.
Now, the one guy, I don't know if you mentioned it before, but I think his name is Adam Rittenberg from ESPN.
Yeah, who has done a phenomenal job himself in covering this, because he's been I mentioned ESPN, but he's basically, I don't know if I can say a one-man band. I mean, like SportsCenter covered it last night, but he is the main.
He was.
He's the main boots on the ground person at this point.
He was literally on SportsCenter. He was on the national radio shows. He was everywhere on ESPN. It was him.
Mm-hmm.
It was literally him. I didn't see much else. I mean, unless you had like the I can't remember her name, Heather Dinage, who covers college football nationally for ESPN, or Paul Feinbaum, who covers college football. None of them were on it. It was just Adam Rittenberg, who doesn't get enough credit for doing these stories, really.
Yeah. Let me go back to the story. So, where do now the allegations of the sexual misconduct come in? Well, obviously, we talked about the running, because we talked about them by on the list on the whiteboards and how everyone was wearing the purge masks, and
that was weird, by the way. The masks, like, what is this? Well, I can tell you what that is. It's probably them trying to hide their faces so they can't be seen.
Yeah, well, what do you expect from a culture of cowards?
Well, that too, but the Shrek Lich thing was bizarre.
Here it gets worse. The university also introduced additional sanctions against the team. Someone who does not report to the coaching staff is now required to monitor the locker room, and the team must end all practices at Camp Kenosha, a training camp location. My guess is Camp Kenosha is where most of this probably took place.
Yeah.
In addition to running, the whistleblower alleged that he witnessed of the team participate in other hazing traditions in which freshmen were forced to strip naked and perform various acts, including, well, I don't
Yeah.
know. I don't know if I only because I don't
I
know
would
the
leave
term.
that.
Only
Yeah.
because it's if I say the term, like the term itself is not vulgar, but I don't know what it means. I'm afraid. You know what I mean?
Well, write the term in the private. I can tell you if I think it's really.
Okay. And then there's the car wash, which I'm not even gonna bother.
Oh, the car wash made national news on all the platforms. I mean, come on, like.
But you know what? If
these-
I mention the thing by name, I'll just read the other things I was trying not to say: bear crawling and slingshotting themselves across the floor with exercise bands.
Okay, so from what I know, bear crawling is like an exercise
Yeah,
that they do in like for the a lot of
yeah.
times the linebacker that
Slingshotting themselves across the floor. Stupid. I think
of
it's
course
just,
it's stupid.
and it's just made them worse by the fact that these freshmen are forced to strip.
Yeah, I
But
mean,
then the car wash, I'm not even going to go to. If you want to know what the car wash is, you go look that up.
yeah, don't.
That's on you. That's on you.
That's on you because like when when you and I read that story, I was just like, nope, nope, that was too much for me at least. But when we saw those allegations, we saw the Shrek's list. There was a few other names that they had for some of these lists up on this whiteboard, which I'll tell you how bad this was. National media outlets were afraid to post the whiteboard pictures.
I don't blame him. And here's a quote, by the way, from the player. He was basically a player actually continued on and said that he had witnessed one player basically say he didn't want to take part in something else, which is a center quarterback exchange where a freshman
I saw that.
quarterback was forced to take a snap.
Yeah,
And he didn't want to
yeah.
do it. And the play basically the older player said he would go on the run list or the Shrek's list if he did not do it. And the player said he was forced to engage in this. I wish I would have told him to transfer because this is an absolutely abusive environment and an environment in which the safety and well-being of players is not protected at all. And basically because these players during these activities were naked, not only does it fall under the hazing, it also falls under the sexual misconduct policy.
Yeah, I mean,
Other hazing practices, we're not done, my friend. We're not done.
But I was just gonna say, like, if people don't think that this is like a real life situation, like this is a real life situation.
And here's the thing: we don't know how many colleges this is going on at, and I'm not saying every college partakes in one of these activities, but you don't know. You don't know what's going on at some of these colleges and their football teams and other teams.
I need to say one thing though, and I think part of the problem with these things when they happen, you need to blame some of these. I forgot the name of it because I haven't been in college in a while. But what do they call the groups?
What do you mean the groups?
When you join one of the Signify group type
The
thing.
fraternities and sororities?
Yeah, I part of this I blame on the fraternities and the sororities because what do they do to get into these fraternities and sororities?
They haze. They go through an initiation process.
Yes, and that's where that begins. I hate this, and I'm not blaming every college, but there are these fraternities and sororities that have these onboarding hazing situations they do, and then it leads to other problems.
I get everyone's going, and I get people are going to defend not every fraternity, sorority, team does it. And I get that. And you know what? It's true. Not every single one of them does it. But when you have a situation like what's going on with Northwestern, it's a bad look for everybody.
Agreed. Totally. When you have one school doing it, and we've talked about other schools, we've talked about it all. If you're going to have hazing allegations, it has to come from somewhere. It has to have started from somewhere. And fraternities and sororities seem to be that place where that starts. Not every school, though.
The other hazing practices that the player detailed daily include a practice called the Gatorade Shake Challenges, where teammates, often freshmen, were forced to drink as many Gatorade shakes as they could in a 10-minute period. The player alleges he has witnessed this on practice in 2 separate occasions, and that he's, quote, never seen anyone not throw up either during or after the challenges. One player said that one of his friends was sick for a number of days. And let's see. I'm like trying to. There's a whole bunch of
Horrible thing.
administration statements, and
Here's the problem. What you're referring to now is the administration tried to hide behind a bunch of
saying
PR
that everybody basically that everybody basically said, it's all. I shouldn't say all that, but a lot of it was just the definitions of what hazing is, what the policies are, and basically saying that all the freshman athletic students have to complete this hazing prevention program before they go into as part of their orientation.
But wait a minute. How does that solve the problem that happened?
It doesn't.
So, wait a minute.
Because Nick, because you could have that such a program there. You can, but you could still have hazing going on at the same time.
Well, okay, that's one of the points. But my point is, what is the point of putting out in these PR statements after a hazing incident already happened and it's made national news? What is the point of putting in, well, the freshmen had to complete a hazing prevention course? It's a little late for that now, that you're putting that statement out after it happened. That's the point I'm trying to make. It's out of order.
Yeah, no, it's completely out of order. Let me get back to the story for a second here. Additionally, Yates says each sports program has biannual meetings to the compliance to discuss hazing and its impact on the student experience, blah, 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 blah. And the player said, here's the more important part to me. The player said that he saw some fellow players suffer mental consequences. Quote, I've had friends reach out to me in the middle of the night having very suicidal tendencies.
Oh, my God.
The player said that throughout the investigation, Hickey's team, Hickey is the name of the leader of the third party that was hired, and Northwestern administration outside of the athletics department, keynote there, were quote helpful, but the player said that he doesn't believe the sanctions levied against the program are enough, calling them your favorite term, quote, slap on the wrist.
All of this has been a slap on the wrist. This whole situation has been a slap on the wrist. All right, we're going to do an internal investigation that takes 5-6 months. And what people are not realizing in this whole thing, they're refusing to release the information.
There are 6 Northwestern faculty who want the investigation findings public.
And they're refusing.
Yeah.
Because they're trying to say, oh, privacy. You kind of lost that when it became national news.
At the same time, I do think you have to do some form of redacting. Otherwise, those players' names are going to be out.
Oh, that's fine. You want to put the names in privacy. I'm all for that. Because then you're putting everybody on blast who spoke out to try to fix the situation. But you need to release the details of what happened. I mean, you have a whole school that's in the balance over this. You have a coach who has $42 million on a contract who is now suing, saying that his contract was breached.
And then you have a former player. Keep in mind, there's another story with a former player who actually says, quote, I didn't feel like I could be anything other than white. We never felt we could be ourselves. We had to fit in by being white or acting white or laughing at our own people. An anonymous player says the racist stuff, the stuff that refers to how black players are treated in my mind, that was a form of hazing. And these players, by the way, basically all these players also partake in, some of those hazing activities, like mentioned before, like the car wash.
Yeah, I mean, so that's the racism part of it. We talked about the hazing part. That's the racism part. We talked about the sexual misconduct. It's rare that when you look at one policy or code violation which controls everything, that you literally have a story that covers hazing, racism, and sexual misconduct. You rarely see those three come out together in the same allegation. I mean, and we'll get
that same day, you got Danny Parkins. You have the I'm sorry,
670 the score.
Yeah, who's talking about on the score, talking about how Northwestern's baseball coach, Jim Foster, also was accused of fostering a toxic kind of environment. Here's the quote from Parkins. Jim Foster was the subject of an HR investigation that found him to have violated university policy by engaging in bullying and abusive behavior. Parkins said the school did not speak with any players on the team. Quote, I received a tip Sunday on the heels of the spotlight on the athletic department because of the football. And then as you pulled at the thread, it just kept going and going and going. And just a generic statement again, our department's annual review of all aspects of Wildcat baseball is ongoing. The well-being of our student athletes remains Northwestern's top priority. Doesn't seem that way.
Sorry. Go ahead. Sorry. Sorry, I don't mean to laugh, but like
we're not laughing at that. We're laughing at the statement.
Yeah, I'm saying I'm trying to be respectful in all sense of the situation, but you're telling me that you have the well-being of the students in mind when all the hazing, racism, sexual allegations, now you have an HR investigation going on with the baseball team. You have a coach that's trying to act like Joe Paterno and saying, I don't know what went on in an allegation or anything that happened. I don't know what to say. I don't. I mean, the thing is, we'll leave some of this story because we are going to be talking to Bradley Locker from SB Nation, who I think we said this right off the top. Like, he nailed a lot of the points in this story for Insider U. And we'll try to get to the bottom of these issues. So we'll leave this one here. We'll come back to it. We're going to put an interview out. That'll be a little more in-depth to the story.
There is actually one other part to this story that came up very recently, which actually was reported by Bradley Locker, who we're going to be interviewing over this weekend. So, per Bradley Locker, former LSU head coach at Oregon, quote, would have interest in coaching at Northwestern, but he hasn't heard from the school. Now, at Oregon, absolutely great talent, coaching talent, absolute coaching legend, ended up helping LSU to greatness very recently with the college football world. That being said, I don't know. First of all, I don't know if you're at Oregon and you have the reputation that you have right now. I don't know why you go to a place like Northwestern and try to rebuild their image. You know what it would remind me of? It would remind me of Dusty Baker in baseball going in 2020 to go manage the Houston Astros. Now, granted, that's worked out very well for Dusty. 2 World Series appearances, a World Series championship last year. But Northwestern's football program is in shambles. It already was in shambles athletically, being such a low-producing win team. And now you got the football program that's basically, there's a whole fire around it. And now that's stretching into more of the athletics department. And it's like, everything's fine. No, everything is not fine. So I get how Ed Oregon would be interested in the job, getting back into the coaching realm. At the same time, I don't know how much Ed Oregon can do to bring up the image of Northwestern.
Yeah, so Oregron had some issues of his own at LSU. He did some things that were a little out of the ordinary. That's why people are questioning. And now I just saw it on social media that there's some conflicting reports on whether it could be true, it could not be true. They can't confirm it 100%. Another college football report, Bruce Feldman, who is now coming out and saying that there might not be 100% truth to the report that Bradley put out, but I don't see this as a fit to be honest with you. I think this is a
regardless,
mistake.
yeah, regardless if it's true or not, I don't like the move, especially on Ed Oregron's move. On Ed Oregron's part, I don't like it. I think
Yeah, it's a very questionable move at best.
yeah, like I like you had the run that you had at LSU. Don't damage it further by going to a place like Northwestern. And at this point, we still don't know what can happen with the coaching situation because you go back here, like those last two words, lawsuit pending.
Yeah, well, first of all, Pat Fitzgerald is not going to come back and coach. Let's confirm. Let's say that first.
Well, but
It's
he's suing though. He's going to sue at least to get his money.
yes, he's going to sue. He apparently he hired a $2,000 an hour lawyer, which is serious money for a lawyer to go into litigation. But I think what's going to happen is when every other situation with a coach, all right, just give me. We'll settle on an amount of the 42 million. Maybe we'll give you half. We'll give you 21 million if you just go away and you never have to work again. So,
And now that's not the only head coaching issue. Head coaching, no longer head coaching issue that we have in the college sports world. So you remember we talked about Bob Huggins and how basically his disastrous run, where weeks prior he had used an anti-gay slur on the radio, and then he gets into that drunk driving incident. The next day he's basically told to resign and does so. Well, now he's claiming that he never resigned. Basically, that there was something with the wording or something like that, that he was basically pushed out, and now he is demanding his job back, basically under, unlawful termination of agreements one way or another.
that was my first reaction to that whole thing, where he was just like, "Wait a minute, they didn't say that I did it correctly. Now give me my damn job back because you guys like slandered me and all this nonsense. Now give me my job back."
How about the footage is out there of you, and the reports are out there of you being arrested, and the sound bites are out there of you uttering anti-gay slurs. How is it that with those kinds of mistakes in weeks so close to one another that you can be back and be a coach?
He can't. He can't be a coach. It's not feasible. I mean, and then people forget second incident with drunk driving.
Oh yeah, we're drunk driving too. Yeah.
So he can't be a coach. Let him sue all he wants, because what the school's going to say is 2 drunk driving incidents, the gay slur on radio, doesn't matter what radio, just I think it was political, but it doesn't matter. And
No, it was a sports station.
oh, was it sports? Oh, I think it was a AM station. But the point is 3 strikes and you're out. 2 drunk driving incidents and a gay slur on TV, on the radio. That's it. You're done. You can't be allowed to coach. I don't care that the Bob Huggins name apparently holds value in college sports, but you're trusted with kids.
Right. I mean, we just talked about Pat Fitzgerald. Pat Fitzgerald, his name holds value. Zan has mentioned his interactions with Pat Fitzgerald during his time at Northwestern were positive. But at the end of the day, you are responsible for kids. Now, some of those kids may not be happy with that Huggins and, in Fitzgerald's case, him are no longer the coach. We've actually seen Northwestern players go out, speak out against, Fitzgerald's firing. I don't know if anybody has spoken out about the Huggins situation, but
Not that I know of, no.
the point is that when these coaches get fired, like they get fired or terminated or forced into resignation, whatever, for reasons, like legitimate reasons like this. Now, are there sometimes BS reasons behind it? Yeah, but making an anti-gay remark, drunk driving, fostering a toxic environment culture, and hazing, in the case, we got in the first 2 were the case of Huggins, the last 2 in the case of Pat Fitzgerald. You don't get to come back. You don't get to come back because you clearly are not taking your responsibilities to the nth degree.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, 3 strikes and you're out. 2 drunk driving, gay slur on the radio. I don't care that Bob Huggins has been in the game for 25, 30, or even closer to 40 years, I think, in coaching. You're done. You're done. It doesn't, and of course, because I think when he got fired or had to walk away, like he was on Fox's Big 10 or Big 12 kickoff shows, and
Mhm.
it's amazing. These guys get second chances, even if it's not coaching, they end up on TV. And here's the thing. So he'll sue. He will lose, by the way, because the school will have proof that.
Or it'll be a settlement again.
I mean, but apparently the stipulations were written in his contract too. No drunk driving, no doing anything. Because I think he got fined or lost $1 million in the contract because of the drunk driving.
Well, I
So-
remember he was going to be suspended for a couple of games and lose some of his pay already because of the radio slur.
I think he lost three or four games, which I think at the time you and I were like
Slap on the
slap on the wrist. Like 3 to 4 games is really going to change what people think about that whole statement. No. So
Well, he hasn't done it. He didn't do himself any favors with the drunk driving incident the day before his supposed resignation.
and now he's saying, I didn't resign. I didn't do it. The letter is all over Twitter. You can literally go to every college insider that covers college basketball, and they had it out there from the school. Bob Huggins is going to lose.
Speaking of coaches, now that we go over to the major league level of major league sports, for the first time in the Brian Cashman era of the New York Yankees, we've had a midseason firing. Dillon Lawson, the hitting coach of the New York Yankees, has been fired after let's say tumultuous, for lack of a better term, first half of the season with the bats, in which I don't know one Yankee that is not on the injured list. I say not on the injured list, so that I'm not counting Aaron Judge in this, who was batting over 300.
I mean,
I don't know any. I don't know. Like, the only hot bat right now I can think of is one Anthony Volpe, which you play your sound effects first.
Look at all the failure.
Yeah,
that's the one I was looking for. Look at all the failure. I mean, first of all, Dillon Lawson, who
So-
is this guy?
you really want to know? You want me to read his Wikipedia page?
Oh, God. Or a baseball reference page? Something like, I don't know.
Okay, so
Does
Dillon
he have a
Lawson-
baseball reference page?
Well, Lawson attended. Oh my God! Wait, this place exists.
What is it?
There's a college that he attended that's in Lexington, Kentucky, called Transylvania University.
I thought that was a movie.
Wait, did the Count from Sesame Street, was he? He was
I thought,
one hit, two hits, three hits.
oh my God. I mean, I just tried to look him up on Baseball Reference. It doesn't exist.
So let's see. After graduating, he did all this. Lawson. So after graduating, he became a coach at Lindenwood University. Went to the IMG Academy. Bounced around a couple of different universities, and then became the Tri-City Valley Cats coach in 2016. That Tri-City Valley Cats played in the New York Penn League at the time, which is no more. Thanks, Rob Manfred, and your minor league baseball reforming.
Yep.
Do they still around? Yeah, they are still around. They actually are in the Frontier League, which I believe is an independent league.
That's independent baseball. Yeah.
Yeah. Then he went to the University of Missouri, then went to another team, the Quad Cities River Bandits, and then he became minor league hitting coordinator in 2018 of the Yankees. And then he became the major league team's hitting coach in 2021.
Wow. That's all I could say here. Like, wow, like no experience. Like, they literally grabbed him off the screen.
Casey, our new coach doesn't have more experience than him, but you know what? I'd rather a guy like Sean Casey, who was well liked in the majors at the time that he played, and was an excellent hitter. As I think he has. I still question his qualification, considering that this is going to be his first stint. But Sean Casey, you're telling me Dillon Lawson, I'll pull from Hank. Dillon Lawson, Sean Casey. Dillon Lawson, Sean Casey. Ah.
I was gonna say, at least Sean Casey's a professional Major League Baseball player or
Right.
hitter. Like,
Dillon Lawson didn't even play in the minor leagues.
yeah, that made no sense. By the way, just
He was going to be the hitting version of Matt Blake.
but I was gonna say, just don't challenge Sean Casey to running to first base because he'll get thrown out by the left fielder. Just as long as you don't challenge him to a speed contest, you're good.
Well, here's the thing about Dillon Lawson. Here's the whole thing about him, and I know there's a whole bunch of back and forth. Oh, it's not just him. You got to fire more, and all these batting averages. Let's put it to you this point. I know everyone is talking about the chicken parm dinner. For those who don't know the story, Anthony Volpe, the big rookie on the Yankees, struggled in his first couple of months up, has a chicken parm dinner with Austin Wells. Hey, those two names sound very familiar.
I think they were on this show.
We talked to Anthony Volpe and Austin Wells, and Austin Wells was basically saying, hey, you used to have an open stance and you closed up. You reopen yourself. And basically, that somehow managed to work. Yeah, and you know what? And Aaron Boone was talking to John Boy and all of them on Talking Yanks podcast, saying it's kind of unfair to do that to Lawson. Let me put it to you this way. Wait, time out. He was going anyway. He was getting fired whether or not that story came out. You know why? Because if you don't remember, on Father's Day, after the Yankees got another one of those really bad losses, I forget who were they playing on Father's Day.
Wasn't Seattle, was it?
Don't know. Oh no, it was Boston. That was the Boston series. I was like,
Oh wait, that was the series they got destroyed and lost 2 out of 3.
yeah. And I don't know if you remember this, Nick, but after that game on Father's Day, they threw Lawson out to the media. How often do you get a Yankees coach, like the hitting coach, talking to the media? That was the sign. That to me was the sign he was done. When they
unless it was Aaron Boone, because the manager usually talks, but otherwise that was bizarre.
But so yes, this story is a bad look, and you can complain about Boone's comments all you want, but Lawson was going to go. Whether or not Boone gets fired at the end of the season, whether or not Brian Cashman gets fired at the end of the season, whether or not the Yankees turn around with Sean Casey, he was gone. Once he was out in the media last month, he was gone. All the chicken parm story was that his coffin was closed. The chicken parm story was just the nailing in the coffin. He was done.
So it's just so funny hearing that story every time. But he was a dead man walking. He always was a dead man walking. As soon as I got to give him some defense because Aaron Judge went out, got hurt with a toe injury at Dodger Stadium.
Here's the problem with that.
Okay.
One man a team does not make.
Agreed.
That does not excuse DJ LeMahieu and his poor performance. And I think ultimately, Nick, because I don't want to go on a Yankees rant because you know us, we will go. But I think ultimately at the end of the day, thinking about Boone's role in this, whose fault I think ultimately at the end of the day, because I also saw Hank's rant about, they should blow it up, all this debate about Judge and giving him this contract.
Yep.
At the end of the day, this should not be the case. The Yankees should not. If you look at the names on this Yankees roster of Aaron Judge, Giancarlo Stanton, DJ LeMahieu, like Anthony Rizzo, it should not be this way. The fact they are this way. In the typical world, we would have Giancarlo Stanton's power. Rizzo would be much better. LeMahieu. Oh my God. Did I not say he was the most important bat? And the fact that he has disappeared. The fact that he hasn't changed, he's changed for the worse since his toe injury over the last season. And now Judge has his toe injury. which first of all, injuries you can't predict. Like, especially when you got a case like Judge's where you're making a big play and you hit you hit cement. And what? Go
I
ahead.
was just gonna say, like, my favorite saying of most of these situations, the fallacy of a predetermined outcome with certain situations where they say, "Well, Aaron Judge's injury totally screwed our." No, stop. I mean, that doesn't help it, but you got to hit.
Your other players need to produce, and nobody is producing. And don't get me started on Josh Donaldson and his 140 batting average in this lineup.
I mean, that guy has warning track power, as Hank would say. But I think there's not much more we can really say. Sean Casey, professional hitter, maybe he'll turn it around. I think Aaron Boone is going to be gone, and Brian Cashman's never going to lose his job because his 90s resume will always hold up for him.
Well, I'll ask you then. Because here's my problem with it. At some point, you got to blame the players. At some point, you got to say, these guys are not living up to potential. The problem is, this isn't like football where you just, you're not living up to your potential. You don't have guaranteed money. Gone. These guys have fully guaranteed contracts.
Well, that's the Stanton contract is the killer in this whole situation.
Honestly, it's not the Judge contract that kills you because Judge is still producing. Judge is the only off bat that you have right now. It's the Stanton contract, which
and no one wants him either.
Not the rumor I heard.
Someone wants Stanton?
Let me see if I can find the story so that way
I mean, we'll move on after this. We talk about this because we have a few more things to talk about. But I didn't hear any of those rumors.
There are a couple of stories out there that are talking about little rumors. Actually, this stretches back to last offseason, too. That there's a certain team in blue out in the West who might take his contract.
Oh, the Dodgers.
So I've heard rumors that, well, last season they talked about if the Dodgers whiff on Shohei Ohtani, or to just beef themselves up, change the scene, whatever, if maybe Giancarlo Stanton could be a fit in their program.
I would have actually. The rumor that I heard last year was San Francisco because that's the team originally that was one of the teams that he rejected a trade to.
Well, then that's going to be the problem. Is his no trade clause? That's going to be the problem. But if you somehow find a way to get out of that contract, you do it. You do it.
It's going to cost. That's going to be one of those deals where it's going to cost you more than it's.
But you also have to think: is it at this point more than necessary? Well, let me ultimately go to you for if you want to wrap this up quickly, because I want to talk about Hank's rant. Because I remember you were very adamant about not giving Aaron Judge the contract. But I think out of all 5 of us who argued at that point, my take ends up being right at this point, where it's if you don't have Aaron Judge, like even Hank, I claim victory by Hank's rant. In other words, that even Hank is saying, then you need to blow it up. So I'll ask you. Do the Yankees need to blow it up?
Right now, the Yankees are half pregnant. Unfortunately, they have Aaron Judge, they have Garrett Cole, they have guys like DJ LeMahieu and Anthony Rizzo. They have like like when a kid takes a stencil and they trace it and they're trying they had instead of drawing the whole thing, they use the stencil. That's the Yankees. The Yankees are a stencil. Like literally, they're drawing the picture of what they want, but they're not doing it themselves. And that's what the Yankees are every year. They don't want to rebuild. They want to do it by paying.
But again, listen, time out. But again, it goes back to the argument of this should not be this way. Giancarlo Stanton should be hitting. Anthony Rizzo should be hitting. DJ LeMahieu should be hitting. Luis Severino, let's not get started on him. Like these guys should be performing, and the reason I bring up about the whole rebuild thing is that they have the stars, and yes, last season you won the division, but let me put it to you this way, and we could also make the argument about all you want about Aaron Boone, how he's led them to 5 straight years of the playoffs, and no coach has done that except for Torrey and such. But listen. 100 wins in 2018. Good start. 103, I think, in 2019 with the division. But then, shortened 2020 season, 33 and 27. 2021 season, you went 91 and 71. You made the playoffs on the last day. 2022, you had that excellent hot start, and then the second half, you fell off
Well,
the cliff.
was that an injury year? I don't remember.
2022?
Yeah. I
No,
thought they
that
had
was
some
that year.
injuries.
They had September. You lost LeMahieu and Andrew Benintendi.
Well, that was the end of their season, essentially, so to
Yeah.
speak.
But you had that. But still, after having that rise that you had to not surpass 100 wins, kind of unacceptable. And
Yeah,
yet,
that was bad.
and now
Yeah.
23. Here we are in 2023, and you're what at the All-Star break, 49 and 41. They've regressed. They have absolutely regressed as a team.
Yeah, but one thing I would say also is without Aaron Judge still being 8 games over at this point is kind of a victory in a sense if you think about it.
Yes, but at the
They
same
could have
time,
imploded completely.
but that goes to my point of you needed to give Aaron Judge a deal. And I'll be very honest with you. I don't think Hal is going to have any choice but to spend money anyways in the offseason. You know
He's
why?
going to have no choice. He's going to have to go out and get pitching. He's going to have to go out and
Oh, I
retool
was
the
going to say, do
outfield.
you want to know why?
Yeah.
Well, first of all, you're right. And at this point, I know we ragged on the pitching, but at this point, I think you need an outfielder because Judge is hurt. Stanton should be playing the outfield because they're just guys who can't DH, and he can't DH. He hits better when he's in the outfield, but
Which is
for
weird, but yes.
for whatever reason, the Yankees, they're too, they want to coddle him and put him in the ball, so they don't want to put him out there.
This goes all the way back, but this is not just Aaron Boone in this regime.
Right.
Go all the way back. Yeah.
This is the point where even Kay couldn't defend Brian Cashman because Kay criticized it. You need a left fielder, and you did not start the season with a left fielder. You had Aaron freaking Hicks in the left field, and
Well.
you still don't have a left fielder. Because Jake Bowers, for as good as he's produced at the plate, he sucks in the field.
Didn't he get hurt?
And yeah, now he just got hurt. IKF, God bless him, but he should not be an everyday outfielder. And now this is 2 straight seasons where you've played him out of the position. You had to play him at shortstop last season because of Donaldson. And now I get you want to fill him, but it's just no, he needs to be at third base or somehow catcher because that's how he came up in the major leagues. But here's why I bring up I'm like the IKF. That it's a good transition to my last point here because the reason I brought up, he's going to have to spend money anyways. David Freitas, Wandy Peralta, Harrison Bader, IKF, Frankie Montas, Luis Severino, Josh Donaldson. Do you want to know what all those names have in common?
Not good years or hurt?
Their contracts are up.
Oh, okay, that too.
And so their contracts are up. And then if you're going to be forced to release Jimmy Cordero at the end of the year, that's 8 bodies that you now have to replace. Either you have to resign or you have to replace.
Oh, no. First of all, Cordero is going to be out the door because of the allegations.
Okay, that's fine. Severino, I wouldn't. Severino, if you need the room, DFA him next month, please.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a disappointment because he was a 20-game winner. I forgot how many years ago, but he was great. He was the ace at one point before Garrett Cole obviously came in, and that's why they spent $300 million on Garrett Cole.
Mm-hmm.
But Brian Cashman's got to get the ass has got to be warm at this point on that seat. Like, I don't understand.
I've been going for his head for years, and you guys are finally coming to my side.
Well, because they're not winning. 2009. I mean, we haven't done any. And people are going to say, "Well, we've been close." Yeah, you've been close. You can't finish the job.
It goes back to ultimately what myself and Federa said months back. Good, but you're not great.
Well, yeah.
You know what the Yankees are? You're mid. You're mid. Am I wrong?
No, you're not wrong. I mean, they are mid. They're not great and they're not bad. They're right in the middle. I mean, like, they're in the middle of the pack. I mean, they're not hitting. They don't score.
And it seems like we've gotten to this point, or I should say front office has gotten to this point where they've kind of accepted, okay, we're mid. Like, that's not the Yankees. That's not the Yankees.
Well, Hal doesn't want to spend.
You don't have any other choice. Or if you're gonna, I know he can't replace all 8 bodies with minor league, but I'm saying if you're gonna go in that direction, then you know what? Like Hank said, blow it up.
You're going to have to
Blow it
blow it up. But here's the problem. When you're talking about the Yankee brand, as they talk about on the Yes Network, and they talk about the big bad Yankee brand,
So
you
it
know
goes
that's
to
not going to
my-
happen.
So it goes to my point of last year. You have a culture problem right now in the locker room, whether you think of it or not. You have a culture problem. Should this be a time where you need to say, hey, tell the fans, hey, we know our history, know our tradition, which, by the way, is now also BS considering that patch.
Oh, well, we didn't even have time to talk about that. But now they have $190 million deal over 30 years for that Stretler insurance or whatever it's called.
Something like that. All I know is that money better go to bringing us players.
Yeah, right. I'll believe that when I see it. I'm looking because I think Marchand had that deal. I'm looking as I'm scrolling. Oh, here it is. Roughly mid $20 million annually for Yankee patch. Some people are saying 20, some people are saying 25 million.
Regardless, that money better go to getting us, the talent that we need.
You know they're going to pocket that money. The Yankees pocket money. They're too busy, as Hank would say, selling chicken tender buckets over putting a team on the field that's supposed to win World Series.
And you know what the sad part is?
What?
We're still better than the Mets.
Well, I wasn't going to go there. But the Mets are still under 500, and they've spent $800 million in the offseason. All right, move on.
I had to throw that one out. Speaking of throwing out, I guess the Portland Trailblazers aren't too keen on throwing out Damian Lillard.
Yeah, this was bizarre seeing this quote. So basically, for people who can't see the banner, if they're listening on the audio side, Portland Trailblazers GM Joe Cronin on the Damian Lillard trade basically came out and said, quote, if it takes months, it takes months. Now, in my opinion, I don't think that's a good suggestion because, as Tom refers to this all the time, it's culture in the locker room. The locker room culture is not going to be great. Damian Lillard has finally come out and said, I want out. Basically, I dropped a TikTok, I think from last week, where basically I said, oh, well, he's leaving the loyalty of Portland to head to the Miami nightlife. I mean,
it wasn't that long ago when we actually, I think it was last week in our 2-part Bonanza episode where I said, I will believe a Damian Lillard trade when we see it. And then, of course, the day that our part 1 dropped, that report dropped that he formally put a trade request in. Go figure.
It's what you said in the intro for this episode.
Right. And then figure, go luck. But now here's the general manager saying, well, if it takes months, it takes months. Now, here's the problem with that. On one hand, if you wait several months, then you get those teams that are like on the cusp. Are they willing to give up more just to get that star player? And then you can rob them of your young pieces, which is fantastic. But on the other hand, if Damian Lillard starts to put up some sort of fuss and starts to talk to the media, it could
You have
cause
a problem.
I get the card the general manager is trying to play, but I'm just saying it's going to take with a big risk, especially in a player-friendly league like the NBA.
Yes, but you have another problem too, which his agent, came out and basically said he wants to play with Miami, wants to go to the Heat. And he basically told he told a bunch of other teams that were calling, it's career suicide if you make an offer or try to get Damian Lillard. He's not coming here. So you're basically killing your market. Why would you do that? So you want to play Miami. Okay, fine. But the longer it takes, you're making it a one-team race. Portland's not gonna give you up for 10 cents on the dollar.
Which is also silly considering, what if Boston called?
They
What if
have.
New York called? What if Milwaukee called? A team that's either a big city or is, taking the next step to get to a championship, or both.
I mean, the biggest mistake would be not going to Boston, in my opinion, because Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown. Now, could he be a Jaylen Brown replacement? If Damian Lillard came in there, that's questionable. But they just brought Kristaps Porzingis in a trade, and now they have the big man that they really want. I wasn't happy when they got rid of DeMarcus Smart. That's a whole different issue because that was their defensive anchor. Excuse me. But this is a mistake, not on Cronin's part. And usually I'm on the player's side when things happen. Hello?
You froze completely.
Yeah, both our screens went black for a second there. Okay. Let me try and pick that up again. So basically what I was saying was that with Damian Lillard, that he should go to Boston. He should go to Boston. It's the best team right now. He would take that team over the top. But you don't have your defensive anchor anymore in Smart. You brought in a big man. I understand that Porzingis will definitely anchor a big man spot at 7 feet. The Knicks are no-go. I'm gonna stop that rumor before it ever starts. Okay. Anyone is the Knicks, the Knicks are gonna make it. What do the Knicks have that Portland would want? What do they have? They don't have anything. Do they have anything that's tradable?
Well, Nick, I don't know how I can really answer that question if you're gonna throw threats to all the other teams of, if you try to trade for him, you're gonna cause a problem.
Right, and that's what I was starting to say, that the agent's an idiot. Like, in the worst way, shape, or form. Like, I know agents are morons and assholes, and that's their job. Like, but we'll go ask Maverick Carter for LeBron James. Or that's his friend. Oh, who's his agent? I can't remember his name at the moment. Whatever. My point is that
Paul?
What?
Rich Paul?
No, his actual agent, whatever his name is. I'm looking it up as we speak. Would you say Rich Paul? Rich Paul. Yeah. Okay, I couldn't hear you. Yeah, Rich Paul. He's another one that I can't stand, by the way. But
I was gonna bring up BSBS.
Well, yeah, Rich Paul has become Scott Boras of the NBA.
Oh, I was thinking. Oh, what was the term we were gonna use? Oh, the Rich Paul gets richer.
Rich Paul gets richer. Yes, that was it. I mean, Dame's agent, and I have no problem saying this, Dame should fire his agent. And I mean that in a serious way.
But he's not going to, because Dame. I mean, you saw that Instagram Live the days before the report where he was talking about, he was dropping the hints that he wants Miami.
Yeah, and if I were Portland and I'm Joe Cronin, I'd say, you're going to stick it out in Portland. I don't care. Sit out. I don't care. Sit out. You're making it tougher for us to trade you.
Well, here's my question. Yeah. Here's my silly question. That's because I don't follow the NBA as much as you. If a situation that happened like that, what would Adam Silver's role in that be?
In terms of trying to facilitate it?
If he can do anything.
He can't do anything. The last time a commissioner got involved in a situation with a team, that was the Lakers voiding a Chris Paul deal originally. Remember with the New Orleans?
When Stern shut down the idea of Chris Paul being traded to the Lakers.
Yeah, because technically it wasn't the Pelicans yet. It was, who was it? It was the Hornets the Hornets were owned by the NBA, technically. So if I'm Adam Silver, I'm staying far away from this and not sticking your 2 cents in here. That'll be a mistake. But if I'm Cronin, I'm saying, listen, tell your agent to shut the fuck up and stop making it harder for us to trade you, because we'll just make you sit on the bench if you're not going to let us trade you. We all know he's going to end up in Miami at some point, but I would do it on their terms, not his terms.
All right, a couple other stories to get to. Speaking of Adam Silver, now we can go from defending Adam Silver, we could go to criticizing him. Have fun, Mr. Morgasen.
Oh, that was short-lived. Yeah, so the NBA, we've talked about this for months when the NBA decided to put an in-season tournament, and we saw, you and I watched the horrible promo video that the NBA put out with Richard Jefferson being the one, come watch the greatest competition in the world. Come watch us. We're basically a parody version of March Madness. Let's put together brackets of 4 teams, and what is it, the first to 4 wins or 8 wins or whatever moves on out of their pod. And it's just, this is about TV money. I'm not going to sugarcoat this, okay? This has nothing to do with, like the players want to play. The players don't want to play more. They don't want to play more. What's that term we used for players sitting out?
Load management.
They're going to load management the in-season tournament. Watch. You think LeBron wants to play in an in-season tournament? Does he really need the money, the prize fund money at the top of the in-season tournament?
For LeBron, probably not. Some of those other guys on that team, maybe.
But my point is, does James Harden need the money? Does Joel Embiid need the money? Does Jason Tatum need the money? I can go on and on and on with all the top guys in the NBA. Who cares? It's just another way for Amazon or Apple TV Plus to get involved in more sports and say, I have a deal with the NBA.
Well, don't forget, the semifinals and championship, where are they going to be held?
Vegas.
Hey, Viva Las Vegas.
It's just a matter of time before there's an NBA team in Las Vegas. It's the only professional.
And he dropped the hint recently, I think, that they would look at Las Vegas for an expansion team.
I mean, of all the sports, actually, I think the NBA would be the best one to have a Vegas team, in my opinion. But I'm just tired of the Vegas wherewithal. I'm having Vegas fatigue.
So, yeah, officials in Seattle and Las Vegas have been pushing. Well, I know he named Vegas as one.
Seattle, they want Seattle back.
They want Las Vegas.
Nashville was another one.
Well, I was going to say, because here's my question. You give Las Vegas and Seattle teams. Now the Western Conference has 2 more teams than the East. How are you going to balance that schedule?
You can't. There's no way to balance it. I mean,
you would have, in my opinion, you'd have to give the East 2 teams too then.
Well, that's the baseball theory. Like when you put one in on one side, you got to put one on the other. Now, it's a little different in baseball because AL and NL doesn't really matter anymore because there's DH across all of baseball. But in the NBA, with all the...
When you have the Eastern Conference and Western Conference, when you have 8 teams making each side for the playoffs.
You got to balance that out somehow. You don't want what happened with Major League Baseball, where 2 teams were not playing. If you remember, do you remember way back when Houston was a National League team?
Yeah, and there was
before
always
they
2 teams
switched it. There was always 2 teams that didn't, or actually, I think it was 1 team, or it had to be an odd number because the games didn't add up. But I don't know. I don't like this. Let's put prize fund money numbers on it to make them play. No one cares. They all make $500,000 on players minimum anyway. So $100,000 really going to mean anything? No. Hell no, it doesn't. It's another Adam Silver slip up.
Oh,
Okay?
there it is. Okay.
It's another Adam Silver slip up because all he cares about is money. He doesn't care about the players. Well, let me take that back. He's players friendly, but let's just run them all into the ground and let's let them play more. You know what? Hey, Adam, why don't we just make the season a 100-game regular season? Since you want more games on the docket so you can put more contracts in play.
Nick, you actually just made all the NBA owners' eyes light up. What? More NBA regular season games? Count us in.
And you know what? While we're at it, why don't we just add another round to the NBA playoffs while we're at it? Let's add 2 rounds of what do we call it? Play-in games. Let's do it that way.
How about
More?
everybody? You know, everybody is going to play in the playoffs. That you, even if you just did the play-in games, you still make the playoffs.
I mean, there was the rumor for the longest time with the NBA that they were going to remove the divisions and put 1 through 32 on top, and the top 16 make it.
Yeah, and then a certain LJ said, "No, we're not doing that."
Oh yeah, because he's the real commissioner of basketball, not Adam Silver.
Well, I mean, Nick, think about it. What have you always said? He is the he is the player, he is the coach, he is the commissioner of the NBA, and he's the peanut vendor out in Section 312.
Yeah, I mean, if you want an answer, go to LeBron James. If he wants more in-season tournament basketball, look, he obviously had to approve this, or else it wouldn't have happened. So that's why we have an in-season tournament. LeBron James probably said it. This is bad. And you know what? We're going to see one here, and then you're going to see one in the off season. So we get more NBA basketball. More!
And this is coming from the guy who's the biggest basketball fan at this network, other than Paul.
I mean, I spoke to Paul about the in-season tournament, who hosts 3&D on our network. Basically, he's like, more basketball? He said, like me, it's a money grab. Because Amazon wants in. TV wants in. They all want Peacock. NBC's trying to get back into the NBA on TV. It's bad news. That. I'll leave it at that.
All right. Speaking of bad news, last story here. The New York Times is folding its sports department. So, yeah, literally, the sports department. When you open the newspaper, there is no sports section. It is gone. If you want to get sports, if you subscribe to the New York Times and you want sports, you got to go to The Athletic.
Wait a minute. People still open newspapers? Sorry. But I tried to open a newspaper the other day, and I think the dust came out of it. But my point is that The Athletic, they bought The Athletic for like $550 million. I still have an Athletic subscription. I wonder what's going to happen to that. Is that going to get folded into the New York Times?
I'm trying to double check because this is definitely something. Oh, it seems like The Athletic comes free with a New York Times subscription.
What if I have a subscription to The Athletic? Is that gonna get like folded in or something?
All access and home delivery subscribers can access The Athletic seamlessly by selecting the option to log in with the New York Times on any The Athletic login page. So I guess you can use your New York Times subscription to get into The Athletic. I don't know if that's how it used to be, but there you go.
But so the news actually came out beforehand that the LA Times went through a bunch of these changes also. It was the LA Times, the New York Times. And now we're hearing like some of their biggest writers have been there for 20, 25 years are being replaced by the Athletic.
And then you're talking about, I forget his name, but the New York Times.
Tyler Kepner.
Yeah, 25 years there at the Times as a columnist, and now he's being moved over to the news desk.
Yeah, he's moving to the national desk. I was like, wait, what? I'm sorry, what? Like, you're going to move a guy who's covered baseball for 25 fucking years, and you're going to move him to the news.
I mean, granted, I would rather him in this kind of position than be out of a job. I would rather him have this job, or at least be in The Athletic. at the same time, it's kind of just disappointing. Imagine that 25 years, all your life's work, and now you got to do something new. Granted, it's a new opportunity, and I hope he makes the best of it. At the same time, you kind of really feel bad.
Yeah, you feel bad. I mean, it's kind of ironic that this dropped right after we did the ESPN layoffs. And
Yeah. It's sad because, like we just talked about before, how the student journalist at the newspaper for Northwestern, how great the power of journalism is, and then you see this, and it's like the world of journalism as a college student versus the world of journalism as a professional.
not
It's
good.
it's two different worlds.
I mean, I want to give an example to everybody. For the two of us sitting here, I did radio, you did journalism. Look at them now. Look at them now as we're sitting here doing a podcast, by the way. And radio is in the decline. Journalism, and I hate to say this, is pretty much dead. And radio is pretty much dead. So think about this. You have people who are going into broadcast, going working at college radio stations when they know for a fact that podcast is taking over the business.
Nick, think of the video that I sent you today from 5 Points.
I watched it. Yeah.
Let's be real. Shit posters are taking over.
It's bad. I mean, like, as long as you have a following, you and I have talked about this constantly, where as long as you have an influencer following, what do you need those companies for? I mean, look at, like, and you don't like these guys. You don't like these guys, but the Paul brothers, or, I mean, this is going to sound bizarre, but Conor McGregor is technically an influencer.
I don't want to hear it. I would rather just end the conversation right here than go into that.
Because technically he's not in the game of fighting anymore. He's in the game of content. The Paul brothers are in the game of content. They fool around in the WWE, but they're in the game of content.
And that's all it is at this point. Life is just nothing but pumping out content right now.
I mean, we talked about content farms a long time ago when Bleacher Report and, well, I don't want to say that because I don't want to get you in trouble, but other websites, I'll say, that put out constant stories, and they don't think about the value of the stories. They think about, oh, I just got to keep doing it. Got to keep doing it. Got to keep doing it.
Yeah, and then when you burn your candle at both ends, you really freaking pay for it.
It's true. And look what happened to the Times. Oh, well, screw you, sports writers from the New York Times. We don't need you. We'll just use the asset we paid $550 million for.
Which, I get it because you paid $500+ million for it, but at the same time, those reports about you finding, you only telling them in a meeting and them finding out just as, they had just gotten into the meeting, which now the guild is suing your ass.
Yeah, that was the thing. Actually, I'm glad you said that because the New York Times, like most big, not networks, what's the word I'm looking for? Media outlets has writers unions and writers guilds. And if that's the case that they found out right before, like, the news shit hit the fan, there's going to be lawsuits all over the place for these guys. Like, you pay union dues for a reason, to protect your job and to protect your situation. Now look what happened. The Athletic is basically killed a bunch of jobs, and they closed the sports department and the sports desk. We saw this a couple of years ago. Do you remember with the Daily News?
Mm-hmm.
When you guys like Frank Isola, who, well, I don't know how much I really want to get into my opinions of him, but my point is, he wrote for many years. Now he's got Sirius XM for the NBA, and he's on ESPN filling in all the time on PTI, and he has all this other stuff. But everyone, the jobs in journalism and radio, let me be fair, are in decline. And I'm going to speak for myself here just to be safe, so I don't say things for both of us. I would not tell people to go into the radio side of the media space. I would tell them not to do it. I put in a lot of work on that space. You put a lot of work into the space of journalism. Look where we are. So, unfortunately, that's the be all end all.
All right. On that depressing note, we're done with this episode. So make sure you hit the like button, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you get notified of everything here at the Empty the Bench Network. Make sure to follow us across social media at ETB Sports, at ETB Network. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, youtube.com/ETB Sports. /ETB Network, pardon me. Go check us out on our social media, on our audio only platforms, rather, I should say, Acast, Spotify, iHeart, so much more, iTunes, etbpodcast.com for all information about the network, blogs from our hosts. New shows have popped up of late, so that's all now been updated on the website. So that's all looking nice and dandy.
Yeah, some housekeeping too, just because I said at the beginning, I'll say it here. You'll be off next week, just to catch up on stuff, and we'll have some couple fill-ins actually, while you're away, dealing with school, getting that all situated, and that's pretty much it. So, is there anything else you needed to say, or no?
No, not really.
Okay, so for Tom Albano, I'm Nick Morgasen. I'll see you for 192. You'll be back for 193, and that's pretty much it. So good night, everybody. We'll see you. I'll see you next week. He'll see you in 2 weeks.
Take care.